Hey there, welcome to Improv FAQ. I'm James Quesada, and the question in this video is, what is improv really? I gave it a more straightforward definition in the previous video, that improv is unscripted theater. But there's a lot of mixed understandings and different definitions out there, and honestly, it can be pretty confusing of a world to get involved with. I've been doing improv since 2009, and I'm still like, what is this? How do I explain this? And I'm always finding new ways to think about it and use it and break and bend whatever rules I think exist. And there are also times when I feel like improv comedy has surely reached mainstream awareness with Whose Line Is It Anyway and Wild 'N Out and improv alums like Amy Poehler and Tina Fey and Keegan-Michael Key, who are often talking about their improv backgrounds, and some celebs like Ben Schwartz and friends doing high-profile improv shows on the road. But make no mistake, a lot of audiences still don't really know what improv is, or they don't know how many different types of improv there are, or they just think it's stand-up. So let's shed some light on why the confusion exists in 4 points. First and foremost, the name improv ain't helping much. Improv is short for improvising, which is making it up as you go. It's creating in the moment, and improvising belongs to pretty much all art forms, especially music and dance, freestyle rap. I mean, I was looking up books on improv the other day, and there were a surprising amount of results related to improv quilting. Fun. Problem solving on the job is improvising, conversation is improvised, most of your day-to-day life is improvised. And the point is, it's pretty bold for any art form to try and claim exclusive rights to the word improv. But here we are. Secondly, to complicate things further, there's a chain of stand-up comedy clubs called The Improv, which started in New York City back in 1963, super successful franchise with venues in major cities all across the country, and all the big names in stand-up came through these clubs, like Jerry Seinfeld, Ellen DeGeneres, Bill Burr, Steve Martin, Dave Chappelle, everybody. And so stand-up comedy became synonymous with the improv for many generations of audience to this day. Great for the success of stand-up, not so great for the definition of improv. Third, and on a similar note, many people associate improv with sketch comedy, which is scripted scenes and bits like you see on Saturday Night Live, and many of the cast members of SNL come from improv backgrounds, or came up through theaters like Groundlings and Second City, who teach improv and use improv to develop material, but also heavily feature written sketch comedy, as well as unscripted improv shows in their show programs. So the lines can get pretty blurred for a general audience when they see a sketch show at an improv institution or improv actors doing sketch. 4, improv doesn't really translate that well to video. It's very much a you had to be there type of thing. And that means there aren't a lot of mainstream household examples of improv. I will say there are a lot more examples than there used to be with shows like Make Some Noise from Dropout TV and the 3-part Middleditch and Schwartz Netflix special, and more clips of live improv shows showing up on social media. But for a long time, and maybe even currently, the best point of reference for telling your aunts and uncles what exactly goes on at these improv shows you're doing is to mention Whose Line Is It Anyway? And no show deserves more credit for bringing improv comedy into the mainstream than that show. That's how I discovered improv in the first place. But it's only one type of improv they're doing on that show, which is improv games, otherwise known as short form. And there's all sorts of other improv shows that fall under long form or that don't have that same game show format. And those are the ones that don't have such prominent examples to point to and be like, you know, like that one show. So who cares? Well, I'm guessing you do if you're watching this. And I'm guessing you're either an improviser who's trying to better understand their art form and their audience, someone who's taking an improv class or thinking about taking classes, or maybe you're an audience member who saw a really cool and interesting show and you're like, what was that? Was that improv? And how do I see more of it? Or maybe less of it? First, if you're an improviser, do not take for granted that your audience knows what improv is or understands what they're about to see. Always give your show a proper intro and let people know everything you're about to see is improvised, unscripted, made up on the spot, and maybe another line or two specific to your show, like we're going to take one suggestion and create a world of scenes and characters, or we're improvising a play for the first and last time tonight, and we know as little as you do about what's going to happen next, etc., etc. I just see way too many shows where the host does a throwaway bit instead of framing the show, or just looks around the room and goes, "We all know what improv is, right? Let's do this thing." And that may seem cool, but it's not helpful if there's even one person in the room who hasn't seen an improv show or hasn't seen your improv show. The second type of person, if you're in classes, a student, know that there are many forms of improv, and learning improv is generally going to start in the same place, so you could take your first improv class just about anywhere and get a similar experience. But if you have multiple options of where to take classes, it might be worth finding out where those class programs end up, if they lead to sketch writing or games or long-form scenes and narrative, if any one of those things is more appealing to you than the others. Third, if you're an audience member and you're really geeked about seeing completely improvised shows, look for those keywords in show descriptions. Sketch generally means the show is at least partially or completely scripted. Short form and games are like Whose Line Is It Anyway, with lots of audience participation. And if those terms aren't mentioned, it's likely a long-form show, which means more continuous improv with minimal audience interaction. Or you might see something that's all of those things or none of those things and find out for yourself what improv really is. That's it for this episode. Follow and subscribe and let me know in the comments if you have any more questions for me to answer on Improv FAQ.